The house at 28 Smith Crescent was designed by Mom and Dad and custom built to their specifications. They were very forward-thinking, and the house they built incorporated many features that were years ahead of their time. I remember reading audio magazines in the 80s about the latest thing in stereo systems, whole home audio, with speakers installed throughout the house that could be controlled from each room. We had that back in the 60s. Long before green energy became fashionable, we had passive solar heating. Here, on the south side of the house, you can see a wall of picture windows. This is the backyard. The builder and neighbors thought Mom and Dad were crazy putting big picture windows, and an entire wall of them at that, on the back of the house. To the others, it was weird because most houses had the picture windows facing the street. I suppose if the house was on the other side of the road, nobody would even have noticed. After construction, the dirt excavated from the basement was pushed back up against the house and used to build the patio. In 1967, after a trip to Montreal to cover Expo 67 for the radio station, Dad built a pair of expo benches under the living room windows. Food and family were always important. There were fruit trees, apple, pear, and cherry in the grove, a large veggie garden, and in the basement, under the front porch, they built a root cellar to store their annual harvest. In the mid-70s, Dad started breaking bread. The logbook was given to him by Mom in July 29, 1975. In it, he would record all the details of each and every batch of bread he made. After a while, Dad started making marginal notes about what was going on outside the kitchen, the weather, visiting family and friends, and other life events. The books became a journal of the life at the Jourards and what Dad considered worth noting. December 3rd, 1977, honey oat bread. In addition to his baking, that day was the first taping for the Bakerman series they did on Cableview. Dad noted, "The idea appears to be working. Joan and Immediate World is crew. Looked at the tapes in color. I think the idea will work."
I call it the baking board. And Joan, can you show the baking board itself here if I just move this out of the way?
You could use that for doing the ceiling or plastering.
You could plaster with it as well. This is a 3 feet by 2 foot baking board with a traditional pioneer pattern with the skirt. It's a 3-inch skirt around it and a couple of handles here where it can be lifted off. We better watch out the man there.
And where do you put it when it's not there?
I stow it in the broom cupboard, make room for it in there. And this was made a couple of years ago by my son Michael in shop class at Harry J. Clark School. And he was kind of excited about making it because...
Did you make me one?
He'll take orders, for goodness sake.
Dad designed the breadboard from memory based on ones we had seen at Upper Canada Village. October 11, 1979, honey loaf and loafkins. Dad notes, Elka wants loafkins for bazaar. Snow north of Belleville on Tuesday. Killing frost this week. Julie has a boy, Wesley James, October 5th. I'm too young to be a great uncle. Dad made all kinds of bread, even trying his hand at Montreal-style bagels and challah, the traditional Jewish egg bread used on special occasions. Probably most famous was his onion bread, made in huge, round, fluted loaves. Often his bread was a variation on a theme, and the book just records what went into it rather than a full recipe. For example, there was the outa bread, so called because he was outa enough white flour, so he had to use other stuff. This loaf contains white flour, whole wheat flour, whole rye flour, 12-grain cereal, wheat bran, oat bran, cornmeal, matzah meal, large flake oatmeal, quick cook oatmeal, and 12-year-old dark honey. The result is good, solid, tasty loaf. Some of the other foods Dad loved were black jelly beans, Mapledale cheese, it's worth the drive to Plainfield, Hawkins cheesies, fresh tomatoes and green beans, especially those from his own garden, and corn on the cob. He would tell us the absolute best way to have corn was to get the water boiling, then pick and shuck the corn as you run in from the garden. And make sure to have one of those beans on a stick for the dog, because she was family too. Dad kept track of other things they made: cabbage rolls, corn relish, green tomato chutney, plum sauce, and their own version of both HP sauce and Lee and Perrins. The harvest from the garden was duly recorded: tomatoes, horseradish, garlic, green beans, rhubarb, and an entire spice rack of herbs. Dad loved making soups: bean soup, broth, zucchini, beef, chicken, turkey, and my personal favorite, beet borscht. The book was a record not just of what he made, but how much and how it was packed into the freezer. You could say that he was a consummate professional.